Well, brothers and sisters, let's see. I do the best that I can, along with the rest of you, to spend some time in the scriptures in my personal devotional on a daily basis, and usually it's the Book of Mormon. And I feel like one of the several most important themes of the Book of Mormon, certainly to me, is that the Lord is really well aware of us all, and that He will just take care of us when we do what He says. And when I come to a meeting like this tonight, and realizing on a Thursday evening you've got a million things you could be doing, and you're here, I just feel like the Book of Mormon teaches me that the Lord is really aware, and that He's prepared to answer some prayers that we have over the course of this week, just because being here is an exercise of faith. I'd like to share that testimony because I dearly believe that. That would be number one. Number two, don't lie to me. You all came tonight saying, oh my goodness, is there something else that's going to take my time? So just 2 seconds of history, and then I'd like to introduce some folks to you. In November of 2011, I think, the brethren began to consider the notion of having a priesthood-driven program. Not a program in any department, but have it priesthood-related, wherein, when President Monson says that we are to hasten the work through missionary work, and hasten the work through family history, and do the best we can to rescue people, and then added a fourth doctrinal concept to us, to take care of the poor and needy. Is there a way that we can do that more elegantly than we're doing it now? And so, Elder Ballard and Elder Clayton and several other folks came to San Jose and determined that it made sense at least they can pilot this thing. A website was begun. The church will never do a pilot program in Silicon Valley ever again. Trust me. But this website has been developed tremendously, and now there is a JustServe format that did so well in San Jose with regards to taking care of the poor and the needy, that the brethren are absolutely convinced that the Lord answered their prayers when they went to Him to ask Him, should this be rolled out elsewhere? And thus, the rollout is taking place. And you're here. I'd like to introduce to you Elder Bill and Sister Sid Price, who came to San Jose, it seems like 15 years ago, but it was only 2.5, whatever it was, and were instrumental in allowing the San Jose pilot to go so well that it's been launched. It's beginning to be launched everywhere, ultimately in North America, in the United States and in Canada. They will be presenting to you in just a minute about 27 minutes worth of a PowerPoint presentation, which I have a really good feeling. You're not supposed to tell people how they're supposed to feel, but I feel like ultimately everybody in here is going to say, oh, I get it. After that, I've invited Sister Beckstrom from the Antioch State, who's the DPA, who's the Director of Public Affairs in Antioch, and does such a good job that I've heard about her a million times, and that's, of course, why I asked her to do something that she, in 5 minutes, is going to explain what her experience has been between the time that she was called to today in terms of populating a website. And then we'll take some time with some questions you have, and I will monitor the questions, and hopefully they can be succinct questions, and we'll answer them very quickly. I promise you, I'll do it anyway, I promise you that the latest you'll be here is 10 after 8. And I've said this before, but if you're here past 10 after 8 in a formal meeting, Brother Rick Koff, who's the Director of Public Affairs for the whole court, is going to be buying you all double-doubles with cheese. I promise you that will happen. Besides Brother and Sister Price, Randy and Pat, will you stand up? President and Sister Randy Mack, our former state president of San Jose State, was almost immediately called the minute he was released from being state president of San Jose to head the JustServe pilot. And And so when we get into questions and answers, and when there are questions that you have perhaps after the closing prayer, trust me when I tell you, they know everything there is to know, along with the prices about JustServe, so they would be more than pleased to answer some questions. So thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you again for coming. I'll turn the time over to Elder Sister Price.
Thank you so much, Elder Packer. We appreciate the introduction. We appreciate being here with you. We're grateful that you would come out on a Thursday evening, and I appreciate that Elder Packer gave you a little bit of history about how this wonderful initiative called JustServe got started. We don't call it a project because JustServe, community service, is the very essence of the gospel of Jesus Christ. We were called in the fall of 2011 to go to San Jose to see if we could assist in putting together a structured way for members and missionaries to become more involved in our communities. Let me just share with you some of the instruction we were given, because as you become familiar with the booklet, and do you have, I'm so sorry we didn't have hard copies. You probably got this in a PDF format, but we did this off budget this year. And we're hoping that by January of this year you'll be able to get it through distribution. But now, if you don't have it, make sure that someone, your public affairs director, can send it to you in a PDF format. We were given some instructions by Elder Ballard. First of all, we needed it structured so that it wouldn't require a missionary couple in every mission to oversee it. You can't spare the senior missionaries. They're just too valuable. Another request was that there be no new callings, because many stakes don't have a very deep bench, and insist on calling new people is a hardship. And so we need to be able to work with people in their existing callings. Now, people may be called at the discretion of the priesthood leaders, but it isn't necessary. And the third one was the members were not to be given assignments to do community service. If we're assigned to do service, it's not really charity, is it? We need to volunteer. Priesthood leaders have two overriding concerns. Number one, they don't want to add to the burdens of the members. We have enough to do. Many of you are with jobs and family demands and church callings. You really have a lot on your shoulders. So we've tried to structure a program, an initiative, that will assist in some of the things we're already doing. The website as a resource is wonderful, and you'll hear more about that when we do the PowerPoint. The second major concern is the expectations of the agencies. So let's say we're working with a soup kitchen, and we've told them that we'll put their needs on our website, and they're thinking maybe they're going to see a big increase in the number of volunteers, and then we don't materialize, and they're disappointed, and we cause more problems than we're trying to solve. So we address that issue by not promising anything. All we do is promise to put their volunteer needs on our website, and then we tell them we are supportive of your mission, and we will be encouraging our members to use the website to find places where they can serve as they have the time and the means. We're grateful for this initiative. How many of you are public affairs directors? Do you mind if I ask? My husband and I, that's good to know. My husband and I have been in church public affairs since 1995. We know it inside and out. We've been multi-state directors. This is our third public affairs mission, and he's been a mission president, so we understand the value of getting missionaries involved in service. This initiative will give public affairs a legitimacy we've never had. It gives you every reason to pick up the phone and ask for an appointment with a mayor, or to drop in and meet a minister and ask if he or she has a ministry that we could assist with, that we could get their needs on our website. It's a marvelous tool, and it's even more inspiring and exciting for what happens with the missionaries. I testify that as you get involved in this, you'll come to love this, it'll be one of the most exciting things you've ever been involved in public affairs. It's priesthood directed, and it's come up through the grassroots. It's not been top down. It's been directed by the Lord, and we're thrilled and honored to have been a part of it. I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I know why we're using this computer tonight. My wife reminded me it's many years old, and now I believe her. So she will have a new computer by next week. Can you see that? Should it be higher, taller? I'm going to go through these slides very quickly. As you're all aware, there are many challenges in the church. One of them, we're going to make this better. Should we make it taller? Is that better? The church and its members are broadly misunderstood by the general public. That may even be the case here. Missionaries struggle to be productive during the middle of the day, during the hours of between 10 and 4, unless missionaries are in a specific language problem or a language program where that does not seem to be the case. They are challenged to fill their time with productive activities. Many less active members remain ostensibly loyal but not engaged in church activities. A solution is that community service could be an important element in solving the challenges of public perception of the church and its members, missionary productivity and missionary fulfillment, and rescuing less active members. The doctrine of service is well understood. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And from the Book of Mormon, I tell you these things that ye may learn wisdom, that ye may learn that when ye are in the service of your fellow beings, ye are only in the service of your God. We have prophetic direction. We have a responsibility to be active in the communities where we live, to work cooperatively with other churches. It's important that we eliminate the weakness of one standing alone and substitute for it the strength of people working together. Unless we lose ourselves in the service to others, there is little purpose to our own lives. Every handbook of the church contains instruction for community service. From I believe this is from handbook number 2, the church members are encouraged to give personal, compassionate service to those in need. They should be anxiously engaged in a good cause, serving without being asked or assigned. Some opportunities to care for those in need come through church callings. Other opportunities are present in members' homes, neighborhoods, and communities. From the Mission President's Handbook, missionaries should follow the Savior's example by seeking to serve others, particularly non-members. In seeking opportunities for planned service activities in the community, missionaries should work with the local church leaders to identify worthwhile projects. From Preach My Gospel, through service, you and those who are prepared for the restored gospel come together in a powerful, inspiring way. Your good works will help people recognize you as a servant of God. As a missionary, you will offer such planned service each week. From the Missionary Handbook, the little white one that we could probably, we saw several missionaries here tonight, I'll bet we could produce one from most of them. In addition to unplanned acts of service, you should seek opportunities for service projects in the community each week. Your service should not replace the efforts of priesthood quorums and auxiliaries, especially in meeting the needs of members. When the church introduced JustServe, there were 5 test missions, including San Jose, and there were 5 control missions, which were spread across the United States, rural missions and big city missions. We surveyed the missionaries in those missions, and we discovered that currently, in most missions, and all the missions that we surveyed, that missionaries are doing 2.8 hours of service a week. 85% of those hours were consumed in moving members in and out of the ward, or the elders' quorum. So, elders, if you're ever asked to do that again, just show them your handbook. Members desire, most view humanitarian and community service as a critical component of becoming a disciple of Christ, but don't know where to begin. What is JustServe? This is a resource to help members, leaders, and missionaries participate in community service as taught in the Scriptures by modern-day leaders and as requested in the handbooks of the church. It is a resource to facilitate hastening the work of salvation through Christ-like service. Church members work with community partners to relieve suffering, to care for the poor and the needy, and to enhance the quality of life in the community. How will it get started? May I see, just by show of hands, how many have had the opportunity to download that PDF file and take a look at it? Many of you. Thank you so much. Unity among the priesthood leaders and the coordinating council is vital to the implementation and success of JustServe. When united, the stake president When united in the coordinating council, the stake president may organize a stake JustServe committee composed of several members of the stake council. The committee uses JustServe guidelines to evaluate agencies and post their volunteer service opportunities on the website justserve.org. Members register on justserve.org. The church leaders encourage individuals, families, wards, quorums, and classes to give regular charitable and community service, but be very mindful not to compel. This is not an initiative that requires any clipboard to be passed around in priesthood or relief society to get people to sign up. In fact, if that becomes known, I'm sure the website will not last long in this church. Missionaries may be given assignments to serve by mission leaders or the stake JustServe committee. The committee consists of either the stake president or a member of the stake presidency responsible for public affairs, the director of public affairs, a stake relief society representative, this would be one of the presidency or someone that they designate, the missionary high counselor, the high counselor over missionary work, the young single adult representatives in the stake, and the missionary zone leaders. Missionary zone leaders are new to the stake council and particularly to this ad hoc committee, but they bring with them a knowledge of when their interviews are, when the zone conference is, when the district conference is, all of these elements that they know and generally stake leaders don't know, plus they will know where missionaries are located so they can be in close proximity to the service opportunities. Others as needed. We've found very creative ways to add people to this committee. In rural areas, sometimes they have someone from each ward. In other areas, they bring unique people to this committee who can give added service. These are obvious types of service, but this slide is included so we can demonstrate that one-time projects like JustServe, Mormon Helping Hands, blood drives or city cleanups or Special Olympics often take months and months to organize, and they're frequently accomplished in just a few hours. In this state, we are noted throughout the church for the immense effort that's done in the month of April, the meritorious effort. Recurring projects, which are most likely to be on an ongoing basis on JustServe.org, would consist of shelters, soup kitchens, food pantries. In other words, neighborhood projects, often serving with and for other churches, parks and recreation. Often these will require, and we'll get a better sense of this when we have a presentation later, but they might take 30 or 40 minutes to set up. They could continue literally for years, giving people opportunity on an ongoing basis to care for the poor and the needy. The outcomes of JustServe for members are that state public affairs committees establish many meaningful relationships with community leaders. Members engage more fully in the community, working with non-members to provide meaningful service. Misconceptions can be corrected, mutual understanding increases, and bridges are built with those not of our faith. The positives for missionaries. Opportunities to give meaningful Christ-like service during less productive daytime hours. Positive relationships with others in the community. Improved productivity and sense of fulfillment. I mentioned earlier the 5 test missions and the 5 control missions. In the test missions, the missionaries had opportunity to visit with and interact with 5 times more non-members of our faith than those in the control mission. We thought it might be a 40 or 50% increase. We had no idea it would be a 500% increase. They're not there to proselytize. This is not a guise for missionary work. This is not our new Trojan horse that we're rolling out. It is simply a way to work with others in the community and drop the barriers of misunderstanding. The sense of fulfillment is increased, improved health. We've discovered that in the test missions, the doctors report a significant decrease in incidence of anxiety, homesickness, depression, companionship squabbles. I know that that does not take place in the Oakland San Francisco mission, but in the mission where I presided, occasionally that did happen. And that has virtually evaporated in the missions that tested JustServe. JustServe.org is a helpful resource for families, family home evening, family reunions, fellowshipping friends and neighbors, for home and visiting teachers, involving those you teach. We lived for most of my life in San Diego. I always visited people who were less active in the church. They're good people. They simply had gotten out of the habit of coming to church. And in fact, they'd put up a few barriers so they wouldn't have to go to church. But I know that they would have served at St. Joseph's Soup Kitchen if I had invited them to go. For youth leaders, imagine the time saved in trying to find meaningful service projects. If you can just go to the website and find service projects that are friendly for youth and family. For Eagle Scout projects, for young adults, for service projects, for bishops, members receiving assistance and you're not in close proximity to a church facility where they can work. Prospective missionaries. Think of missionaries who get a call and they're not going to go for 5 months because their visa is not going to arrive. How wonderful it would be to engage them in some meaningful service a couple hours a day through JustServe.org, for Relief Society and quorums and sisters conferences, for quorum activities. We served for a year in the San Jose 16th Ward, where Bishop McGurk has adopted the parks that are in the vicinity of their building. It's a rural, not a rural, but it's a neighborhood ward. There's not a lot of cities in the ward. They've adopted the park. They've discovered that there were 7 churches there. They've asked how they can assist other churches with their ministries. And it's been a wonderful relationship for missionaries, investigators, less active members, and new converts. We're going to show you the website in a minute. It's so easy to set up an account. There's also a social media element. Most people, not the administrators on the website, but most people will be able to sign up through their Facebook account if they have one. Young people tend to have those accounts. When they go to serve on JustServe, not only do they get an email when a new project goes up, but all their friends get notified if they've given the correct permissions. And many people can go. And here in California, where high school students are required to have 40 hours of community service to graduate from high school, it's so much easier for them to find meaningful, safe places to go that we know have been vetted. Our invitation to you is to register on JustServe.org, to use JustServe.org to find service opportunities to help you with family and church responsibilities. Hopefully, once the website has been populated, it will save you time in that effort. Serve as time and circumstances permit. I'll save you one question. How are we going to know when our people in our quorum and the Relief Society are serving? We're going to know exactly the same way as that we now know if they're attending the temple. There's no way to know, and there's no way to know here. We will know collectively the number of hours that are being served, but we will not know individually or by ward or state. We're not going to get into competition or reporting with this initiative, because, as Sister Price said, charity cannot be assigned or forced. To share your experiences, your positive experiences with others, not only on the website, but in leadership meetings. Elder Russell Ballard said, the future growth of the church will not happen through just knocking on strangers' doors. It will happen when the members, along with our missionaries, filled with the love of God and Christ, discern needs and respond to those needs in the spirit of charitable service. That cannot be accomplished by missionaries alone, but requires the interest and the service of every member. I think that we can turn up the lights for a minute so we can have the next presentation.
So we look forward to having some of your questions. Sister Beckstrom, why don't you come up? We just touched base with Sister Beckstrom in the Public Affairs Director of the Antioch Stake, and just to ask her several weeks ago, would you just go and attempt to populate the JustServe website with a project or two? If you'll take 3 or 4 minutes, this is what happened.
Hope I'm not getting someone in trouble. It wasn't several weeks ago, it was a week ago Sunday. I was, and I couldn't work on it until a week ago yesterday, because I was on the back of a motorcycle doing a 4-state vacation with my husband, because we hadn't had one together for I don't know how many years. So this is how easy it is. I got it done. I got 2 projects posted. Of course, I got my hand slapped when I got here, because President Daines reminded me, when you go through your training, there's that spot where your priesthood leaders approve it. But I figured President Westover is the reason I got called to do this. So, and I did let my people know, the projects I posted, I did let them know that the information I was gathering from them for this coming week was to populate this website, and that I was going to a training on Thursday night, and there would likely be changes. So I hope that covers me going back to them with any changes my state president advises me to make. But what I did to start, because we were limited in time in vetting projects and going forward, was I simply called some of the service opportunities in the communities that we have used for Mormon Helping Hands, and a special favorite out in the Brentwood area is the Brentwood Community Chest, which delivers or prepares Christmas dinner, an apple box of donations, a turkey, bag of potatoes, and Christmas gifts to about 500 local families every Christmas. So our scouts and our Cub Scouts and our Achievement Day girls and our missionaries and everyone is always over there doing this project in December. So I figured between the Friends of Marsh Creek Watershed, that's an annual Mormon Helping Hands project and has been used for a state youth conference service project, and the Brentwood Community Chest, that I could probably pull that all together in about a week. And they were so thrilled when I called and asked them about it. I also sent out other feelers, and just to let you know, as I sent those feelers out and said, hey, the church is doing this website, we want to bring volunteers to your organizations and serve you. I'm still learning, I don't know what I'm doing, but if you want to be a guinea pig with me, please hit me back and we'll go over this information. Well, I got a tag back from a county supervisor and several other people in the community that are aware of the church and were thrilled and want to meet with us as soon as we're ready to get rolling, but didn't have time this week to help. So, you know, if you're feeling a little worried about this, how it's going to be received, I felt the response was fantastic. I only had time to get 2 projects up before tonight, and I think the last one I got up around 2 o'clock this afternoon. So it was simple. Brother Price showed me how to get myself registered on the website. The next thing to do was to get the person I was working through with their organization registered as just a person on the website so they could be linked to volunteer responses for their project. So I started off registering myself, getting the contact information and getting that person registered, and then going through the website and filling in the information. I plagiarized some of it from their organization's website, such as their mission statements and different things like that, to get it going and to get kind of the dialogue going with these people. I also took the 3 pages of the website and that you use to fill in the form, and I captured them in a PDF and sent those to those people so that they could sit down comprehensively and look at the questions I was asking and what I would need answers to, such as the time and what do we do if we get more volunteers than you said you want? Do you want them, or do you want us to close the volunteer sign up? The different things like that that you'll find on the website. And the information came back to me in electronic form, and I was able to just literally copy and paste it into the website, send it back to them for review, and then publish it. And so now I'll take that to my state president and find out how much trouble I'm in. But it was that easy, and I have all these leads in my inbox of people that want to discuss this, that are excited about it, that want to send me leads, that want to be involved and hear more and learn more. So I'm making a list of those, and as our state committee gets rolling on this and we actually start the process of bringing forward projects and vetting them and seeing how they fit into the objective and how to post them and keep them going, I think we'll have plenty to keep us busy to start. And that's just off of the people I know. I know people in our state are well connected, and I see this going very well for us. What else did you want me to say? Okay, good, I'm done. Thank you.
Well, so brothers and sisters, why don't we just spend a few minutes receiving your questions. That was a presentation at 64,000 feet. There is the PDF file of the JustServe handbook that the state presidents received in the last coordinating council meeting that will answer a lot of the questions that you must have. But with the crisis here and the max here, why don't we see if we can go ahead and answer some questions you have just quickly. Brother.
So,
you know what, Ashley, if you'll take a mic.
Just
Brother Wall, will you take a mic and...
Yes. Just administratively, so we'd like to get a copy of the PDF, even though the state president may have it, and we'd like to get a copy of this presentation tonight with things. So where do we go again if you say that?
I'm just going to repeat that because we're videotaping this. So how do we get a copy of the PDF? How do we get a copy of your presentation tonight?
All of the state directors of public affairs have access to the PA network on LDS.org. And not only those materials that you described, but a version of this that's suitable for schools, for cities, for other churches is also there. There are business card templates, there's pass-along card templates, there's posters that are suitable for the community, posters that are suitable for a ward building, just to advertise the presence of JustServe. There's just a lot of materials there, including the ones that you described.
Thank you for your question. Others, Sister?
So, what is this process for vetting the project?
Let me have you ask that again. We're going to these mics around too, Corbett.
If you could describe the process for vetting the project.
The projects are vetted initially by the State JustServe Committee that was on that slide. We counsel together and we say, does it meet the 4 requirements? First requirement is that the best projects are those where we're working shoulder to shoulder with others in the community. Number 2, that we're caring for the poor and the needy. Number 3, that we're improving the quality of life in our community. And number 4, that we're not involved with for-profit organizations, with political organizations, or directly involved in fundraising. We do not want our missionaries going door to door for the American Red Cross, as wonderful as that is. We simply don't want to handle the money.
These are great. Thank you, brother.
In our regional training back in April, we learned that Livermore, the city of Livermore, had made JustServe their official site for volunteer service. Is that something that we're going to want to do with all of our communities?
That's a wonderful way to go, and eventually we hope that states will adopt this as a platform for their service. There are a number of cities in California that have now expressed a desire to do that. Livermore was an early adopter, Gilroy was one, Poway, Murrieta, and National City, down just north of Chula Vista, have expressed a keen interest. The cities have expressed a keen interest in using it as a community platform. This is being sponsored by the church. The only church identification on it is the little ribbon at the bottom, sponsored as a service by. And we've had very little pushback on that, even from other churches.
Sister Rasmussen.
I actually have a two-part question, actually. One is if you have any suggestion for working in communities where they are unincorporated, so you don't have elected community officials, many of the elected community officials.
Let's answer these one at a time, because I've got a very small brain.
Okay, we'll take that one.
In rural areas, we've found that the best source for service is working with other churches, because often they'll have a ministry. So even where there is no city government located in your area, that's a good place to start. Another good place to start is with organizations that you're already working with, like with Mormon Helping Hand, which I understand. I am saying the completely wrong terminology in California, but you get the idea. Does that help with that?
Yes, that does.
Number 2.
My second question is in working with schools, and there are probably other organizations as well, they often require TB tests and fingerprinting. Do we have any comment about that?
Often they will have their own websites where that's described, and we can pass the volunteers to that website so they can sign up on their website. We don't ask the missionaries to go through any kind of a licensing process. We know that they're completely vetted before they're here, but the problem is if they have to go through, say, a food handler's permit to work in the soup kitchen, which is often the case in some states. This state doesn't seem to be that way, but Colorado, that was a big deal. We don't ask the missionaries to get that license, even though they could, because chances are that license will cost $40 or $50. And the next week, the mission president's going to transfer them to Nebraska. And so they've wasted the money. So we just don't ask them to go through the process. While we're on missionaries, we also ask that there's a real high bar for them in terms of working with children. And in the JustServe initiative, we do not work work with any child who's 12 or younger, which is a higher bar than in Preach My Gospel.
Thank you.
Two things I came across when I was putting the information into this site. One is, one of my organizations already has a sort of a volunteer system set up, and they use Eventbrite for their volunteers to pre-register so they can work with them a little bit more flexibly and volunteer information and reminders and feedback. Was that something I could have linked to? I didn't have a chance to call you back, and you were
Yes.
over too.
If you dig into, I think, I looked at it today, I think it's page 3, there's a little button that says, do you want them to be referred to the sponsoring organization's website? If you click that, then the volunteer, when they volunteer, says, there's a little dialogue box that comes in and says, you must register on St. Joseph's Soup Kitchen.
So I can plug their event right in for them. And then the other quick question was date and time flexibility. For instance, and I don't know how often I'll run into this, but I did this time with the Christmas basket, the regional community chest program. They pack the boxes on Friday night from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then they resume Saturday morning at 7 a.m. until about noon to actually disperse the Christmas things to the pre-registered recipients. The site didn't seem to give me the flexibility to list that as one overall event with those times separated. I needed to kind of start Friday.
Actually, that's the same event, but it
so-
has multi-shifts.
Yes.
And so you could have set up one shift for Friday night and one for Saturday morning,
So
and one for Saturday noon, and you also may need different numbers of volunteers for each of those shifts.
Okay.
Okay?
I'll have time to dig into that.
Call me back.
Debbie?
So I have a couple questions. When I hear that the city of Livermore has adopted the JustServe website as their city calendar, does that mean that every city in our state is supposed to have its own JustServe website, or are we doing a website for our entire state that may comprise several cities, many cities,
There's one website for the entire world.
for the entire world?
Currently, it's in English, so it's for a very limited part of the world. Next year, we'll find it in several languages, and after that, more as budget and circumstances permit. If we state that Livermore has adopted this, we've made too much of a case about it. The mayor called together the churches, the charities, the schools, and the city agencies and tried to bring them together. It's kind of languished. Am I correct, Brother Matt? Kind of languished since then. Other cities have stepped up and are really aggressively going after it. The last time I talked to the member of the state presidency in Livermore, he was still kind of massaging the system.
So it's possible that our state and the state next door to us would have some of the same agencies on our website, the same service opportunities.
Where's Brother Kopf? He's the one that's going to say, he's going to get the two stakes together, and he's going to say, okay, you take this one, you take this one. For example, you're going to have a food bank, a central bank, perhaps in the greater Oakland area, maybe in the county. There will probably be 75 or 80 food pantries. And so one stake will have responsibility for the bank, and it'll be apportioned out properly. And then every ward or stake will probably have the pantries in that area.
So that's something that has to get approval, there's a process.
It's not approval, it's just a simple phone call. You know, would you mind doing this, and you do that? It'll be easy.
Okay, and then just one more
More than
question.
capable.
Who administers the site? Like, we have this now JustServe State Committee. Does every person on the committee get to administer the site, or is it just two people administer the site? How does that usually work?
Great question. There's a hierarchy on the site. There's a role administrator. We have one role administrator in this coordinating council, and he's sitting on the front row. He can designate anyone in this room or anyone in the community to be a project administrator. And project administrators are the ones who really manage it. We're counting on the church members to vet these initially, but as we become comfortable, and we're already comfortable with some great churches in this area, some great charities, he will assign them to be their own project administrator. It works beautifully. Yes? Excuse me.
2 years ago at our regional seminar, I met you and your wife, and you had just pardon me?
I remember.
You know my cousin?
I thought you looked familiar.
Brother Henry.
Yes.
Okay. Be sure to vote for him.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. But you were telling me, anyway, you were explaining the program, and looking back on that, what was the greatest challenge you encountered, or challenges that you got going, because you were...
I would love to address that. We don't have time here. Let me just say that the process of putting this together was immense. Not only because the website initially was really... Is anybody from the missionary department here? It was not functioning correctly. The website is now functioning correctly, so we had a lot of pushback on the website. There are still improvements that will be made week after week. The brethren in Salt Lake City were also, there's literally 15 opinions. And the opinions are seasoned and they're inspired, but they needed to be united before this could go to the next. We couldn't go to an IPO until we made it work locally. We had to nail it before we could scale it, is what I used to say in my business. And that was a difficult process. Elder Ballard told us one day that he did not think that that unity would come in his lifetime. He thought that his grandchildren might have the benefit of JustServe. That's all I'm going to say.
How is it possible for the members of the church to populate the websites, the committees to populate the websites, and then not feel intensely guilty when people aren't going to those various venues to serve? How does that work?
Tough questions. In the guidebook, you'll see that when we go to an agency for the first time, and for the second, for the third time, we promise them absolutely nothing. Zero. We tell them that once the website is populated, that we're going to go and train the members in each of our wards and invite them to register, and as they have the time and the means available, as they want to teach their children how Ammon served rather than just the beautiful story in Alma, that they can go do that. Most agencies will say, absolutely, I'm all in, because all of these agencies need money and they need volunteers, and they're always short of both. As JustServe becomes more established, I was telling Elder Packer that the really good projects now in San Jose are, the volunteer needs are filled up quickly. Now the lousy projects are never filled up. But the people they seem to keep coming back and asking us to put it out there, because everywhere they can get exposure is a good day.
As it relates to the Holy Dollar, why is this website incredibly unique compared to every other service website, or 90% of the other service websites?
I can maybe best answer that by sharing an experience that Sister Price and I had just a couple of weeks ago, where we got a call from the man in the Governor's Council for volunteerism and community service, something like that. For the state of Utah, he represented every entity that needs volunteers. And many of their grants depend upon volunteer service. They've been using a website, and it just wasn't keeping up with the times. As you know, the websites morph, and if you're not the latest and the greatest, it tends to get behind. And they had done research, and they came to the conclusion that there was just a couple of websites out there that met their needs. They wanted to talk to the church because Most of the websites out there that match volunteers with volunteer opportunities, like Volunteer Match, or many really great sites like that, are very expensive. You either need to pay to be listed there as a service provider, or you need to pay to have the volunteers come. That's how they have a revenue stream that maintains the website. And because this is provided as a service by the church has invested the money in the programming and is just providing it as a service to the community. Does that help?
I think we're going to take one more question and then see this video. President.
In San Jose, of the allotment of missionary service hours during the week, what percentage of those service hours were filled by projects listed on JustServe? I'm trying to see how in real life missionaries on an ongoing, regular basis can participate in the project listed on the website.
Sure. I work with that state president, or that mission president very closely, so I have a really good feel. So, when JustServe began in San Jose, the missionaries were doing maybe 1.5 hours a week, perhaps 2 of service. And most of that, again, was helping members move and helping members pull weeds and things like that. Currently, about 80% or 85% of the 10 to 12 hours a week the missionaries do in service, which is 4 or 5 acts of service a week, almost 85% of that is done from them going to the website. Bless his heart, he's going to find out that it's much easier for these fabulous young men to consistently go to the same project or to a summer project week in and week out, as opposed to having to find a brand new project every single time they go out and do service. So I hope that answered your question about 85%. Now let me tell you the other thing though, that is really fun about San Jose. There are a lot of missionaries that maybe weren't quite as proactive, and a very small percentage. So President Watkins bought every missionary in the San Jose mission plastic rubber gloves and garbage bags. So if they can't find a project on the website, because of JustServe, and the fact that service is so important in President Watson's mind, they walk the streets. They just walk the streets with plastic bags and gloves. 5% of the progressive investigators. And, you know, thank you, 5% of the progressive investigators are coming from people who are walking up to asking them, what are you doing? So.
There's one other element of that. This year, I just looked at the numbers recently, and the missionaries alone in the San Jose mission will donate between 120 and 130,000 hours of service this year, which is astonishing. It's astonishing to the cities, to the agencies. It's really quite remarkable. The members, we now have, you probably haven't seen it here yet because you have new metrics on the website. I pulled up Randy Mack's metrics the other day. Since the first of the year till about the 19th of August, there were more than 17,000 hours voluntarily donated by people who registered on the website. We assume that many of them are LDS. And it seems to me there's like 1,200 people who donated those hours. And we're not going to drill down any lower than that in emissions, because, again, we don't want to put pressure on people to serve.
Thank you, Elder Senator Price. And can I maybe just do one thing then, and then we will see this 9-minute video and try to save Brother Koff a lot of money. Let's, on page 19 of the PDF description of JustServe, which is, by the way, just a fabulous book and will answer tons of your questions, there is the rollout for members, and there's 4 steps to it. And the first step, delineated in the first sort of 14 or 15 days, would be working with each one of the DPAs in each one of the states to see to it that they're trained and they begin to discuss the importance of state projects. In the first 30 days, or by day 30, so beginning tonight, in 15 days, that would be the suggestion. They're going to be in touch with all the DPAs and see to it that they're all trained appropriately. By day 30, the state JustServe committee is suggested to have met once. And in here delineates the state JustServe committee. Ashley Powell had sent to each one of the states, the folks that are here tonight are probably members of that JustServe committee. they will have to have been met one time in the next 30 days. In the next 60 days, it would be hoped that there might be 15 to 20 projects. You know, I don't know, President Mackey, a state kind of caps out at 20 to 30 projects. Is that a fair comment?
In our mission, we have 200, we've been hovering around 250
Okay.
projects.
15 to 20 projects is, you know, it starts getting a whole lot higher than that. It's a little tough, but 15 to 20 projects she kind of approved is a really easy thing, a reasonably easy thing to do. Now, you know what, I still can't get that out of my heart. I know 65% of you are saying to yourself, yeah, this is another thing that I have to do. You know, if you just sort of think, a police corps advisor that wants to teach his kids service once every other month, you go to the JustServe site. The Relief Society that wants to do something, you go to the JustServe site. In my case, I home teach a couple of less active and non-members of the church. I'm all over this. One of them, one has a wife that won't let me into the home, but I home teach them every month, second Monday of every month at 5 o'clock. Well, we're going to start doing JustServe projects as soon as it's up, the second Monday of every month at 5 o'clock, and I'm praying like crazy that his wife will come with us. And then finally, by day 90, Rick will work with each one of the DPAs to see to it that the members of the church in each one of the wards are trained. And that's kind of a vital process that we won't get into here, but they spent a whole year in San Jose going to each one of the wards in San Jose, which is almost 90, training the members. That will be done at the more local level. I hope that that's helpful to you. Why don't we